boats and behold roads of farm and herb garden we grow, learning how they live we know, very little but still explore how it could have been before, of times long past, of peace and war, of crafts and bills to ancient lore, discovering here at Jarrow Hall.
Hello and welcome to the Jarrow Hall Podcast. We're filming our third episode of the podcast today, and today's topic is going to be about farming and education. And we have with us Jo.
Good morning.
Who's going to talk to us about everything that she does on the farm and how she uses the farm here. And
Actual farmer.
Farmer, yeah. Yes.
First time we had a properly qualified person on this podcast, isn't it? Rather than just pure volunteers.
Oh, yeah, you mean like a staff member rather than a volunteer.
Member.
I had to process that for a moment. I was thinking, define properly qualified.
Well, you know what I mean. First time we've got a professional on rather than just volunteers. But farming and agriculture and the history of Anglo-Saxon farming and how that compares to what we're doing now with our experimental farm at Jarrow Hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last time we talked about the events and things, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Did you do anything nice over the Easter and May Day and everything since?
I did absolutely nothing. I did exactly what I said I was going to at the end of the last episode and just vegetated and enjoyed not being at work. How about you?
I was at work, so I was farming over the Easter. Yeah, I do all the
that's quite nice. That's
it was lovely because it was so quiet and the animals just so lovely. So
yeah,
it's not a bad way to spend Easter then.
Not at all. It's lovely.
Yeah. I was going to do a scout camp, but it was cancelled because of how many leaders could go and things. And so I went to Moorforge and did a craft festival.
I've not been to Moorforge yet.
It was really good. I was impressed. I met lots of lovely people. I met a couple of people from here as well.
Really?
Yeah.
We've got a few Cumbrian volunteers now, don't we? I think Joseph lives over up there. Yeah, he was there. But yeah, I met lots of nice people, and the crafts and arts and things like that we found was absolutely fantastic.
That's lovely.
So,
really worth going.
I guess for our viewers, Moorforge is an experimental Viking Age farm in Cumbria, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They have like a longhouse,
I don't know what their main use of the site is, but when I went, it was very much festival vibes and entertainment. It was communal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you buy anything?
Yeah.
What do you get?
Well, I got a new cup. Not this one, but yeah, I've got
an authentic cup. Medieval cup, was it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'll have to bring that down one time. Mead.
I knew you would get mead.
Yeah.
It's
quite
essential.
Important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before we get too distracted on all of the off-topic things, what do you actually know about Anglo-Saxon farming? Because I know next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I keep it light, but after the Romans left, the new arrivals, the Anglo-Saxons, didn't really focus on crop farming so much. They were much more interested in livestock farming. So they had big herds of sheep, cattle and pigs, from which they got wool, obviously meat, but also dairy products like cheese and butter and milk, and that's how they got a lot of their protein. And they would have needed dogs as well to manage the herds and also for security. So they had their summer and winter pastures, so different types of terrain that they would use depending on the season. And obviously they needed a lot of land in order to do that. So they're living a fairly nomadic lifestyle. But as we move further on into the Anglo-Saxon period, towards Bede's time, which is the sort of mid-Saxon period, crop cultivation comes back in quite a big way. And we end up with a mixture of arable farming and livestock farming, because if you're farming the land for crops, you can't really do that without animals. You need manure to fertilise the land, and also, of course, you need manure for your buildings, for the daub, for halls like this and all the buildings around it. So animals are essential. They're still using them for most of their protein. We think that most Anglo-Saxons probably had by and large, a vegetarian diet. Yes, they would eat meat when they had to kill some of the animals when it got to winter, and they were sort of having to manage their resources quite carefully. But it wouldn't have been. It would have been like now, where you can have meat. You know, you can find cheap meat throughout the year. That just wasn't an option. So very different to how we live now, of course. And finally, as you get to the late Anglo-Saxon period, things get quite sophisticated. You get big estates cropping up where they maybe focus on just growing one particular cereal crop. Maybe if they're brewing, there might be barley or something like that. And really sort of complicated systems of crop rotation and fields being left to go fallow. And that landscape, which is very organised, lends itself quite easily to what becomes feudalism after the Normans come in. So 3 stages, really. Livestock farming after the Romans leave, with a bit of crop cultivation, and then a mixture of arable farming and livestock farming, and then a very sort of settled, complex structure of farming. That makes England really wealthy, because one thing that they do start doing later on in the Anglo-Saxon period is sheep farming on a very big scale. And this is where the wool trade kicks off. So particularly in southern England, there's a big focus on sheep farming. The wool that is sold to merchants in Flanders generates huge amounts of silver. And that is why the southern kingdoms in the Anglo-Saxon period, Wessex and Mercia and so on, are able to pay Danegeld, these big ransoms in silver, because they're making money hand over fist from the wool trade, and they can afford to just pay off attackers when they arrive. So farming's at the core of everything that happens in the Anglo-Saxon period. Other changes we should probably mention is the way they produce flour. So we have a quernstone here. So we take the grain and grind it out by hand to produce flour. Over time, there's a move away from that towards watermills. So by the time of the Norman conquest, there are about 5,000 watermills in England. We know there was one at Gateshead, actually, just along the road from us.
I absolutely love watermills.
We should build a watermill.
We should absolutely have one.
If we have a water source down here, I think a watermill would just be such a nice feature.
Would be really nice.
And I think the chaps at Anglo-Saxon DIY would be up for it. Not to volunteer on their behalf, but yeah, we know that there was a watermill in Gateshead from this book, the Bolden book, which is kind of the version of the Domesday book for our area. So after the Norman conquest, there was a big survey of all the farms and the land in England, because William the Conqueror wanted to know who owed him what in taxes and tithes and renders. But they never got quite the northeast. So in the next century, the Bishop of Durham compiled a similar survey that was written at Bolden, not far from where we are. And that tells us a lot about land holdings in Northumberland and County Durham in the medieval period. And for subsistence farmers in this area, you might find a sort of typical farm might be 20 to 30 acres. That would be enough to support a household, which could be 10 people, maybe as many as 15 people. So they would have farmed that quite intensively. They would have eaten everything that they grew, and of course they had to grow everything they ate. And then any surplus they had would probably end up going in tithes and renders to the bishop or whoever they held that land from, in between them and him. And that's a very high-level summary of farming in Anglo-Saxon England. But I guess we should probably talk a little bit more about the types of animals.
I'm interested to know how you know all of this. Like, obviously there's the Bolden book which is written down, but what other sources are there?
There's a very good source called the Julius Work Calendar, which was written in the 11th century, about 1020, and it basically details the sort of tasks you'd be carrying out throughout the agricultural year. Mm-hmm. And very helpfully, you've got a page for each month, and at the end of the page, at the very bottom, you've got a nice drawing showing the type of work that's going on. And it just shows how seasonal people's lives were, and that, you wouldn't, whereas now a lot of us sort of work 9 till 5, and we have a fairly static level of activity throughout the year. But in the early Middle Ages, you might find that you were incredibly busy in the spring and summer and autumn. But when it got to winter, you were just doing nothing. So the Julius work calendar, it shows in February they start clearing the land. In March they're sowing and ploughing and digging, planting all their seeds and crops. Then they celebrate Easter in April, but then in May and June and July they're felling trees. They are sort of pruning their plants. And what else are they doing? There's something else that they do in that time. It'll come to me. But they're getting ready to get all those jobs done. They're mowing. So they're gathering sort of plants for fodder. They're sort of taking down meadow grass with scythes to get the vegetation they need to provide for the animals in winter. So all those tasks are taking place at the height of summer. And then once it gets to August and September, it's all about gathering the harvest. And obviously the harvest is their main source of food for the year. And you would just work constantly. As long as there was daylight outside, you would be out there gathering in crops. But then once the harvest is in, if you're an agricultural labourer, there's not too much else to be getting on with. You might be repairing buildings or doing other chores. But really, you're getting to the point, it's starting to get colder, and you're going to have to start, as a community, watching your energy levels, because it's all about just staying warm and getting through the winter. So the November illustration for the Julius work calendar just shows someone doing a little bit of metal work in the corner, but everyone else is just sat around the fire because there's no work to be done. And then once winter is past and we get back to February again, work will begin again, getting ready for the next harvest. So
I'm sure there's plenty that could be doing over winter.
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of storytelling and whatever, it's your leisure time really in winter. You can
lots of crafts and things to be
you can
doing.
get on with crafting or whatever sort of hobbies or interests you have.
I guess it goes with our natural rhythm as well. Like in the winter, you do like to stay in a lot more, and you're more you're slower paced, aren't you? So almost like hibernation, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
I've got a word for it. I can't remember where you do like a semi-hibernation.
Yeah.
Some people call it wintering, but there's another word, and I can't remember what it is. Oh look, here's Huff.
Here's Huff. In a good mood today?
Mm-hmm. Always in a good mood.
Do you want to come round, Ben?
It's always in a good mood when Ben's got him.
Oh my gosh. So I'm curious, why do we actually have an owl on an Anglo-Saxon farm?
So, a long time ago, the first man I was at, Lean Phoenix, he wanted a barn owl, but to make sure that we'll be able to have one, we've actually done some research first, and we found out that when they've done a cake down at St. Peter's Church down the road from us, they found finds of barn owl bones. So that's what made us the barn owl for the farm. He's been here 8 years, and he's been having his best life ever. Just walking around, meeting the people on the
Am I
farm.
okay to touch him?
Yeah.
Did it take him long to get used to you, Ben?
He's just
He's very relaxed.
Yeah, for a while I get back on the glove after a while because because of lockdown happened. No one was able to get in and get him out. So after lockdown I went in, dimmed back on the glove. He wasn't having none of it. But now he's more used to the glove now than what he was beforehand. And that's because I've been in with him every single day, every single time I was in. Done with him, put him on the glove. Even when we had the bird flu, I went in with him, put him on the glove. So he does that, used to it still.
That's good. It keeps him social as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than spending all the time by himself in his hutch.
So he meets, sometimes he's upping him out for the stools and the visits and the public when they're coming off onto the farm.
I love the fact that it's, we actually have some evidence for a barn owl being at St. Paul's in the sort of medieval and early medieval period. I think it's probably one of the few animals we've really got firm evidence for here, although of course they would have had livestock in the monastery. But how long do barn owls live for, Ben?
So barn owls in the wild will live up to the 15. separate activity will live up to the 20 because there's not that many people out there hunting them down of animals and humans. There's have been instances where humans have hunted them down for the feathers and stuff, and you have like falcons and sometimes things as well with them.
So as they get older and slow down, they're a bit more vulnerable in the wild. Yeah.
So certain activities will live more longer than anything else really. We just fed every single day.
So had you been volunteering for very long before you started taking them out and putting them on the glove?
So I've been here 9 years and Huff has been here 8 years.
Right.
But it's something to do in November. It will be 10 years for me for being here on the farm.
And I guess you were probably the first person to take them out when you arrived.
Yeah.
Did that take a lot of getting used to for you?
No, not really. I just done out. Seen him out every single day. And he's just got used to it. Then he's bonded.
He seems very chilled out.
You mentioned bird flu, so that's got to be a pain in the neck.
It was. It was only able to get out for bird flu, but I went in with him each day.
Yeah.
And put him on the glove, so he still gets used to the glove still. Because if you don't put them on the glove for so a while, they actually dust from the glove, and they don't like. And then after that, they won't like it afterwards.
Yeah.
So for lockdown, I was thrown in with him, putting on the glove, and just sit inside with him. And
You need to keep consistency with them.
yeah,
How do you go about controlling like the hygiene and things with them?
we've had
Like if you're handling them and then you're handling the ducks and things like
we'll have
that.
to wash your hands.
Yeah.
So you have to wash your hands with hot soapy water.
So we have like one dedicated person for the birds. So we had Ben weekdays and then the staff were on the weekend. But it meant that Ben could keep up the good work with Huff.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a really good job, so
Oh, that's fab.
yeah. Very valued member of the team, aren't you, Ben?
Yeah.
Alright, shall we say goodbye to Huff?
Yeah. Oh, it was lovely having you. Thank you for bringing him.
You're very
Yeah,
welcome.
thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
You're very welcome. Bye now.
Bye bye.
See you later. Bye, Huff.
I'm just going to adjust my microphone. Well, that was a nice surprise.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
lovely that.
I've never seen Huff up close before, to be
Have
honest.
you not?
No, I've seen him like out and about with Ben a few times,
Yeah.
but never engaged with him at close quarters. But he's
First for everything.
there is, yeah. First time I met Joe today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we do have lots of other animals, don't we? Here at
We
Jarrow Hall.
do. We do. We have a lot, don't we? Animal-wise, a lot of our animals are very rare breeds.
Yeah.
So, for example, our English goats at the very bottom, it's only 74 females in the whole world. It's very, very rare. So
Are
we've got
we
three.
part of a breeding programme?
We are trying to get part of the breeding programme. The issue we have is we are a no-kill farm.
Yeah.
So if we breed and then we have the more goats, and we have to make sure they're going onto somewhere that aren't going to kill them for meat. You know, we have to be
Yeah.
really careful about where they're going, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of ethical issues in there when it comes to breeding.
So we have to manage our resources and our space, just like they did in Anglo-Saxon times, because
Definitely.
we're limited with the number of animals we can have. So we've got 11 acres for our sort of farm area. It's probably worth mentioning that. And you mentioned that we've got rare breeds. I mean, a lot of those breeds are similar to what you would have found in England during the Anglo-Saxon period. So I guess if we look at our cattle, we've got 2 bulls, haven't we?
We do, Dexters. So the big ones,
Yeah.
and then we've got the little one as well.
Yeah. And Dexters are an interesting breed because they are similar to Anglo-Saxon cattle because they're a bit smaller compared to normal bulls and cows,
Yeah.
aren't they?
Yeah, especially Wilf.
Well,
They seem really quite placid.
They are lovely. You know, Wilf, we can take the kids in with them, they can brush them and everything like that, and he'll just stand for quite a while and enjoy a good pamper,
Oh, that's
which is
nice.
absolutely lovely.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we have to follow like all these safety procedures for being allowed to collect some of their poo for making the dog.
Yeah.
And the risk assessments and things, all the procedures you have to follow, they're really quite strict.
They are massively strict. And then you add children into the mix and, you know, you have
Yeah.
shovels, you've got to be so careful. But we've got like loads of steel toe cap boots, and quite often farm school will go in and poo pick a field, and 30 kids can get it done so much quicker than me by myself.
Yeah.
And quite often they'll go, "Did you just bring me here to pick up poo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. Why would I do that when I've got you there to do it?"
That's
Type
fair.
of thing. Yeah, it's fantastic. They're always adamant they do not want to do it, and they always love it.
Get
It's
stuck
their
in.
Not a
favourite
bad
thing.
job.
It's really good. Like you just go and do it, and it's nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
And we've used it for daubing before, and once it's been left out in the open for a couple of days, it loses its smell.
Yeah.
There's nothing really offensive about it.
Yeah.
But it does have the right consistency for...
So I've still got some in my fingernails from last week. Where I have washed it, I've scrubbed it, I've picked it and everything, and it's stained.
It does. It stains your
Awful.
skin. So I tend to wear really dark nail varnish all the time for that exact reason. Because my cuticles are usually a mess, and under my nails, just to hide it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got the Cheviot goats as well, which don't come from very far from here. Cheviot Hills. The farm team. So we've started going out on little well-being outings, I guess. But it's mostly to look at the animals we have, look at their natural habitats. So we went to the Cheviot Hills to find the herd that our goats came from. Did like a little pilgrimage, like sunrise over the mountains, looking for these goats. It was absolutely lovely.
Is that up in the Rothbury Hills?
Yeah, it was really nice, and we got to
sounds
see
nice.
them as well. So we were really lucky that we found the herd. It was a great morning. And then our little piglets, our little Mangalitsa piglets.
Yes.
We went up to Scotland to pick them up, which was beautiful in the Cairngorms.
Yeah.
Gorgeous place.
Because we had two older Mangalitsa pigs,
We
but one of
did.
them died.
Rudy and Rudy, yeah. Ruby and Rudy, sorry.
Ruby and Rudy.
Yeah. So we've got Berkshire pigs, who are also a rare breed, and then we've got the Mangalitsa piglets as well.
And Mangalitsa's, I think they're a Hungarian breed, but they're bred from wild boar, so that's kind of close to the pigs or the swine that would have been kept on farms in the Anglo-Saxon periods. And I guess with the Cheviot goats, they're quite a primitive breed as well. They're very ancient with the long horns. And we didn't really talk about them too much earlier, but goats would have been kept for milk and also meat and their horns when they died, because they had to max out their resources. And in an age before plastic, all of your sort of belt buckles and pins and combs,
And I think as
handles for tools and stuff.
With infant mortality, not infant mortality, with the maternal mortality, when mothers would often die with giving birth, because they didn't have the medical knowledge that we have now.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more common for mothers to die. So how did they feed their babies? They brought goats in, didn't they? And that's why they're called nanny goats. Is that
Nanny
right?
goats.
Yeah. Goat's milk's a lot easier to digest as well over than cow's milk,
Yeah.
So they would have drank primarily goats and sheep's milk, I think, rather than cow's milk, which is a Viking thing. I think. Scandinavians brought that over.
So another good thing about the goats is as parts of the farm, maybe that the public will never see because it's behind the museum and stuff, but when we get out of control weeds, we do conservation grazing with them. So we take them over and they graze down all our weeds.
Conservation grazing.
Yeah, it
love
saves
that.
staff costs. We don't use petrol mowers because the goats eat the grass and the nettles and everything, but then less feed for them because they're happy eating all the fresh stuff. It's a fantastic way. And then they poo, and that all mix in
it all gets
beautifully.
used.
Yeah. I
Maxing
remember
out
when I
resources.
first started, there were, Yeah, when I first started volunteering, there were strimming grass with strimmers and mowing them with mowers. And we talked about it for a while, and I was really pleased when they started.
The conservation grazing. Yeah. So another thing that we do with our sheep is we let them out in the village. They've got free roam of the farm all the way up and down, but they tend to stay up here. And they will graze all of our areas up here, which is just so much better than mowing everything down. And they're happy, we're happy. It's just lovely.
It's authentic.
We did have some bother with the sheep when they were doing their grazing, because they were let out, although we were close to the public, we were working on site when we were building the Gruben house.
Yeah.
And I remember them trying to eat the structure as we were putting it up. So it was humorous.
Yeah. But frustrating sometimes. Yeah. I know they were out the other morning, and because we have them out from Sunday night till Wednesday, and Marco had come over the radio and he's like, the sheep are eating the willow. I was like, they've been eating the willow since November. Oops. But luckily they just eat like the bottom couple of leaves and stuff like that. All the stuff we coppice is always fine.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned coppicing, because we do have another site, a West Bolden Lodge, not far from here, which is where we get most of our timber from. The willow and the hazel and the ash and oak for our buildings all comes from there. And we have to manage that quite carefully, just as they would have done in the Anglo-Saxon period.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we get so much from our small sites.
Yeah.
And we do so much with it. You know, we've got all the volunteers that work so hard on everything, and then the occasional staff member that'll pop in and do a tiny little bit and then claim it all as theirs. Usually me.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But, you know, I just think it's really lovely. You know, we have all this stuff that we use.
Sorry, Chris.
It's just like a very natural way to live, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from the volunteers and the staff that you work with a lot of learners and students as well, don't you?
I do.
Tell us a bit about that, because I don't know a whole lot yet.
So my primary job when I started was farm school. So I had this lovely little bubble where I had this lovely school, and they would have, you know, every year group would have 6 sessions and they'd come in, and it's all nature-centric learning.
Yeah.
Beautiful way to spend the day. Lovely, you know, just bringing them into sight, really immersive learning, and very unstructured as well. Very, you know, I always have like a lesson plan, and I always go totally off topic. You know, we'll be pottering about, we'll be doing something, and then, you know, someone will go, oh, look at that bird, and then that's it, we're off bird hunting to see what we can find and stuff like that. It's really lovely.
I think that's probably the best way to do it when you're immersed in nature, because you just never know what's going to come your way.
Yeah.
You've got to be flexible to match what's around you.
Absolutely. So, and different year groups, so I usually have 2 year 3s, for example. In one class, I'll go totally different direction at the other. So I'll have my lesson plan with 4 things in, and the first class will just be on the first thing, and it's took all day because they're really enjoying it. And then the other class, we'll whiz through it, and then we'll end up with something else on top of it, type of thing. Usually poop picking, because that's always needed done. But, you know, it's really lovely to have this. So I do have a lot based on curriculum for the year groups.
Yeah.
Very loosely. You know, like it's the doing here, the kinetic learning, that kind of thing, the exploring, the play, the conversations, that kind of thing. So it's very, very different in-school learning. I think it's beneficial for the teachers as well. I know they always have a lovely day when they come out with us. You know, nice and relaxed. They see a different side of the children to what they would in school, that kind of thing, which I think is really, really important.
Yeah. I much prefer that type of learning myself.
Definitely. I do. I struggled in school. My daughter and my son both struggle in school, you know what I mean? I think, you know, if we had a lot more stuff like this, it's so much more important, you know, emotional
you engage
learning.
with it, fully.
Yeah.
And when you're doing this kind of learning, you know, it takes up all of your concentration. You're not thinking about, you know, a meeting you've got tomorrow, or, you know, things you've got to deal with at home. And likewise, kids aren't thinking about, you know, what they're going to do afterwards, or, you know, getting their phones out and playing on them. They're actually just engaging with something that takes all of their concentration.
It does. And sometimes, you know, you'll have a lot of children that with a lot of energy where they want to run.
Yeah.
But we spend so much time moving from site to site to site. You know, our site's not massive, but for little legs, it can be a lot. Like my average amount of steps a day is about 21,000.
Wow.
So it keeps them moving, you know, it keeps that energy. So they don't have this pent-up energy. They can kind of relax into it.
Yeah.
You know, it's really lovely.
That sounds amazing.
It's a lovely way to spend a day.
So is it mostly schools who you get in, who bring their classes in to do the learning, or do you get people from other places as well?
So originally, for me, it was schools. There's always been an alternative education programme that runs alongside as well. I've come into that recently, and that's a lot smaller groups. So farm school tends to be general school classes of 30-ish. Alternative education, we run it slightly different. We have smaller groups, so maximum of 8, prefer about 6. but we also do one-to-ones.
Yeah.
So we have students from non-verbal or don't speak English, really cannot manage in a school setting. And they'll come here and it's all about just resilience, emotional health, mental health, that kind of thing. And we do sometimes plan it out as well. Sometimes it's more child-led,
Yeah.
with the long-term goal being we want teamwork, and eventually we want everybody in a group so they can kind of be around people their own age, learn how to get on.
Yeah.
It's really important, especially once you hit year 11, let's say you're out in the world, aren't you?
You need those life skills.
You need that. So
But at the same time, to gain those life skills, they need to be able to do that in a safe environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get referrals from the council send team.
Yeah.
We get referrals from schools. We sometimes get homeschoolers, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because we aren't fully set up for people to access that yet.
Yeah.
So we're looking into this because I think it's a really important thing. More people are homeschooling.
I'm a home educator, and we don't follow structures or anything like that with my home educated child. My other child is at school because she loves it.
Yeah.
And she really thrives from that, but it just didn't suit my older child at all.
And it doesn't suit
But
everybody.
I would be really interested in doing
some homeschool sessions. So I think with the homeschooling sessions, it's literally logistics. We need to know what kind of thing homeschoolers are wanting. Do they want set sessions once a month, once a week? It always comes down to funding as well. Where's the funding stream coming from? Is it going to be something we can partially fund or not? I don't know yet. But it would be absolutely lovely to include this within the education on the farm, because there's a gap and we need to fill it.
Yeah. Do you find that demand has gone up in recent years for these sessions?
Farm school. So I have got more schools. Currently I've got a wait list of about 8 children for alternative education, so we need more staff to be able to provide more space for more children to come in, that kind of thing.
It sounds like a really essential service, because these are kids who don't do well in a typical school setting, but they can. It's almost like therapy, but they can sort of get the life skills and confidence that they need to.
Yeah, and I think there's just something so healing about being out in nature. The sounds, the smells, even that can sometimes be too much for first couple of sessions, and you slowly work it in. But then to be able to go into an animal enclosure like a bull and brush them, from being inside the house on computers to doing that, takes a few weeks, but it's beautiful to see it change.
Yeah. And some of these kids have probably never seen a farm animal before they start coming.
Definitely not. I had a year 2 class, and it was really raining. It was torrential rain, so we stayed in and drew pictures while we waited for the rain to stop, and it was their first visit on the farm here. And year 2 is it's about 6-year-old, isn't it? Year 2, 5, 6. They, through no fault of their own, drawn pictures of ducks with 4 legs, things like that. And when we came onto the farm, they were like, "What's that? What's that noise?" And it's all this stuff that it's really difficult if you live in a house with no farmland. It's we're so disconnected from nature.
Do you know what it makes me think of about them drawing ducks with 4 legs and that? It makes us think of when you look back at the old manuscripts and things where people have
tried to imagine what a giraffe looks like, or something,
or a cat with a human face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely like that, and it's just because we do live in this world where we're inside a town, inside a house, where we don't get outside a lot. We don't learn about clouds and grass, and we don't dig for worms anymore, do we? I grew up in the 80s. Well, yeah, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I was always in the garden mixing potions with petals and stuff like that, and digging up worms, and it's so different now.
It's not a priority for a lot of people, is it?
It's not, because really,
going on.
Once you leave school, your job has nothing to do with that, unless you're lucky enough to work here.
Yeah.
But
it's good for the soul, though, isn't it?
It's so good for the soul. I didn't realise how much I was missing out on, to be honest, before I started this job.
And I think that's, we think about people in the past maybe as being a bit ignorant, but in a lot of ways they're far more attuned to the natural world than we are.
Absolutely.
Most people, you take them out somewhere like this, and they look and they see the trees and they just see trees, but someone from that early medieval period would be able to tell you the different types of trees. And, the timber from that one is good. Obviously that one's no good, and what the leaves and flowers can do.
Which ones are edible
Yeah.
or have other uses, and which ones to use for tannins and all the rest of it.
And they're very self-sufficient. I mean, just being able to grow all of your own food, build your own house, weave your own clothes.
Absolutely.
It's hard work, but it's very satisfying, and it's just very sort of primal. It's the sort of work I think, as a society, we're starting to realise that's the kind of work that's really fulfilling.
Yeah. I think a lot of us realised in lockdown when we were stuck in, weren't we?
Yeah.
And you got to spend a lot of time out in the garden, how your stress levels reduce, how much better you are feeling, how much better you are sleeping and stuff like that. And yeah, we live in a world with so much stress and pressure on us all
Constantly,
the time.
Yeah.
And they say even just getting out for a morning for an hour can help you so much. So, and a lot of people don't get that, do they?
Which is why places like this are so important.
And then things like there's a lot of data that shows the amount of playtime that children get at school. It's massively reduced. Less than like prisoners in America and stuff like that. They get like a set of time. Whereas there's so much crammed in that they've got to do. It's very difficult for the teachers, isn't it?
There's so much pressure for exams.
There's so much
isn't
pressure.
Which stresses kids out as well, and teachers too, I imagine.
Absolutely.
So I think that it does sound like we really need some more staff.
We do. Oh, that'd be amazing.
Provide, and help even more children coming here.
You must have like a whole massive amount of responsibility on you because of everything that you do for everybody. It must be...
Yeah, it piles up a bit.
Yeah.
I was just saying to Chris the other day, I spent about an hour in the pony field, just lying on the grass doing my emails in the pony field, just because I wanted to be outside, trying to get one of our ponies a little bit more comfortable around people because he's been a little bit upset lately. And
how many jobs could you do that? Just sit with some ponies and work through your emails.
Yeah, it is lovely.
Ace multitasking though.
Oh yeah. Really, I was just lying in the field in the sun. But yeah, it is. There's a lot to get on with.
Yeah.
And we've got our cats as well, don't we? And we know that cats would have been used then as now as mouses.
Yes, so that's why we have our cats. So our cats, when I first started, I'd routinely see about 5 or 6 rats just run across the path all the time. Then our cats were released, and it's massively changed. I don't know whether you can remember before we had the cats.
I remember, they were nesting in, we have a bed in Monk's cell, and...
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
Quite often the cats will bring a mouse in the middle of farm school and they just drop it in the middle of all the kids. It's a great teaching moment. This is nature. This is what the cats do. We're very honest about the way we run the farm here, the jobs the different animals have and stuff like that.
Was it quite sudden when we got the cats? I mean, was there a consultation within the farm team?
So I was only here for a week before the cats were let out. So it was, but just before me type of thing. But I think it was a really good choice.
Because I'd heard a rumour that there were issues with a rat catcher, or it was just deemed to be easier going forward just to get some cats in.
So we're very much against using anything like pesticides, any poisons and stuff like that. It's really bad for conservation, bad for the ecosystem, that kind of thing. So cats help with the rat problem. The sheep, they help with needing weed killer. So sheep eat the things that we don't want. We don't have to weed it anymore. It's perfect. Just so much more balance in that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more organic, isn't it?
Definitely. It's so much more important.
And again, it's using things we've already got, like the animals, and thinking, well, how can we put them to work?
Absolutely.
And, they all contribute in their different ways.
It's
even with their dung, we use it to build stuff.
Absolutely.
And it fertilises the fields, and more grass grows that they feed off.
Yeah. So we've also started letting a lot of the areas grow slightly wild as well. The longer grass, the meadow grass and stuff like that. And we've found that we've got loads more butterflies and dragonflies, much more diversity, which is really important.
It's nicer for visitors as well to wander around.
So much nicer. We cleared the pond area, which means we had a lot more ducks land. We've had a heron, which unfortunately ate a lot of our frog spawn. But there's still a lot of tadpoles, so I'm hoping we'll have a nice frog day soon where they all come out the pond. That'll be lovely.
Heron's got to eat as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the water reeds that were taken from the pond, I mean, are we keeping those for use in a future thatching project?
Luke dried them all off. He's piled them all up. I think they're in the Gruben house.
It's that magic man again, Luke.
Yeah, so they'll be used. If they can't be used on the buildings, they're going to be used on the animal enclosures. So farm school quite often help fix up the enclosures, especially route to work. So Harley runs route to work. They do a lot of the heavier stuff, whereas my farm school tend to do more of the aesthetic, nice stuff. So we'll be hopefully thatching some roofs and stuff like that. And it's not going to work perfectly because we've got a modern structure underneath, but it's going to look much better.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes.
We need to get Luke to work on this sometime, don't we?
Yeah.
Because they do great work as well.
I love a bit of
Absolutely.
thatching and that. So
Yeah, so you can come and do farm school with us and we'll do some thatching together. That'd be lovely. Yeah.
When we talked earlier about the crops that were grown, things like barley and wheat, the type of wheat that they had back then had a very long stem, and once they've gathered the harvest in and taken the grain to be turned into flour, you're just left with this long bit of grass, which is the thatching material that they probably used most of the time. And obviously we've changed the way we grow wheat now. I think with the combine harvester and multi-stem wheat, which has multi-grain wheat, which has a very short stem, we don't really have long thatching straw in the UK anymore. And I know that
it's
when
a lot rarer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
we do have this invasive species of water reed.
We do. So nature will provide, and we've got plenty of black thatch on the hills and moors hereabouts. So it's always easy to find thatching supplies if you're willing to get out in the truck and, with permission, of course, do a bit of scouring.
Yeah. When you say about farming to somebody, you kind of automatically think food production.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Especially the likes of this farm now, you think, well, it's not really a farm because you're not getting produce. But when you actually look further into it, you are, because we are farming them for daub, we're producing reeds for straw. And I think, could you count well-being as that? We're farming well-being people.
It's a byproduct, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we are a no-kill farm, so none of our animals will be killed and put in the food chain type of thing. Very ethical way of farming. It's a very unusual way of farming. Obviously, most farms get the animals, fatten them up, they go for meat type of thing. Our animals, they spend their days in luxury just getting pampered.
Lots of elderly sheep, haven't we?
We've got
was
lots
gonna
of
say.
elderly sheep,
A lot of them have outlived their expectancy already, and they're still going.
By about 8 years, I believe,
Wow.
Yeah,
Even
we
the bulls,
expected them.
they've lasted a long time.
Because they're ancient, aren't they? Edward and Oswald.
I think they're about 22 now,
Wow.
which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we have put a plough on them a couple of times to show how a gang of oxen would have looked.
Yeah, there's a
back in the
YouTube
day.
video, Tony Robinson ploughing the field down here with the
Yeah.
bulls. Yeah,
And they're quite young and sprightly then.
they
I
were,
think.
yeah. Can't imagine them behaving for it now. No, they'll be absolutely not where retired.
But I guess even, with being a no-kill farm, you can still teach farming to kids and young people who want to learn about farming and agriculture.
I think because, again, we're so disjointed from the way our food comes, because we just get in a packet in Asda, don't we?
Yeah.
When you go to an animal and we'll say, these are our pigs, what kind of food do we get from pigs? And they're like, can we say in front of the pig? And I'm like, yeah, we can say, we're not going to do it. The pigs know, And you can see the wheels turning in the head. And
It's quite sobering, isn't it? When you're face to face with, pigs, and you think about all the bacon sandwiches you've had in the past.
And quite often they'll go, I've never eaten pigs again.
Yeah.
Because we always talk about animal intelligence
Yeah.
and things like that as well. We talk about how we're similar to dogs, that kind of thing, and why do we eat pigs and not dogs? And children quite often say, never eaten meat again. And I'm like, well, eating meat's not the issue. It's how we raise the animals, how we farm the animals. You know, I would much rather eat my own animals that I know that I've raised correctly and they've had a good life and a safe, quick death type of thing, as opposed to just buying from a supermarket type of thing. I think it's always comes down to that ethical question, you know.
And there's something authentic about it as well. I mean, we're here, we're trying to represent that early medieval period when livestock, yes, they would kill their animals when they had to in winter, but they were valued. I mean, once you've killed an animal, you can't get milk from it. You can't produce butter or cheese, or you can't get eggs from hens. Whereas if you look after them, you've got a source of a food source, a source of protein, and that'll keep you going throughout the year.
Yeah.
We're really classed as sacred. I mean, even, I think especially cows in a lot of cultures are classed as sacred. They're used in rituals.
It's proverbial, isn't it? Sacred cow.
Yeah, so they really are valued.
And I think when you come to us and the farm team here, we're all really soft. You know, whenever an animal passes, you'll find like at least 2 or 3 of us, you know, sitting with the animal, trying to comfort it while they wait for the vet or whatever, you know, and it's always an upsetting time. It's really incredibly sad whenever we lose an animal.
But is it comforting just knowing that animal has lived a much longer
had a good life.
Yeah, and a happy life?
That's the thing, isn't it? You know, we've had all these lovely experiences with all these lovely animals that we have. And I guess the reason it hurts so much is because we care so much.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's bittersweet.
A couple of animals that have been sort of sent to us because they were going to be sent for slaughter if we didn't take them.
Yeah.
I think Flynn is a case in point, isn't he? The big West
I
Hebridean.
think so. I don't know for sure, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I know with Wilf and Chad, they had twisted hocks and things like that. So, you know, you couldn't rebreed from them because, you know, they've got these issues type of thing.
I think the same happened with the goats, doesn't it? When you talk about the Cheviot goats, is it right that they cull them to try and keep the numbers down?
They do cull them, yeah.
Because they don't have the natural predators, so humans have to step
And obviously
in.
they interbreed too much.
Yeah.
So we become problematic. So I know we always contact the people that are in charge of this kind of thing, you know, when we've ever got any space, and we'll say, you know, we can take a couple.
Yeah.
So this is when we get a few more and stuff like
a few
that.
unexpected goat arrivals within our existing bunch that haven't we mentioned
so
they'd be interbreed.
This is pre-me working here, but I've heard stories of just staff coming in one morning and being 2 extra little baby goats in the pen.
From what I remember, that was one that we're getting from the Cheviots.
Yeah.
But when it came, we didn't realise it was pregnant already.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the same
That's
happened to me with guinea pigs years ago.
Yeah. Lovely surprises, though.
Yeah.
Lovely surprises.
Yeah, so how are we doing for time? Probably.
We've been recording for 37 minutes.
Oh, that's quite good.
It's decent.
So, should we maybe pass this on to Brúnwulf and see what he has to say about
Absolutely.
about farming, something?
It's always interesting when Brúnwulf chips in.
Yeah.
See what he's got for us this week.
Yeah. Take it away, Brúnwulf.
While here on the farm named Jarrow, animals live out their days peacefully into old age, without fear of the butcher's blade. The Anglo-Saxon farmer would not have slaughtered his livestock too early in the year, lest they were needed to tread the soil, to pull the plough, and work the farmland. Yet it would be difficult and expensive to keep, in old age, a large animal over the winter. And so when their time came, they would be slaughtered for food in late winter, to provide a feast over the period of Yule which we call Christmas. A large part of the pre-Christian heathen belief was centred around the agricultural year to ensure success and prosperity of the tribe. And this was easily co-opted into early Christianity, which did not change much after adopting these agricultural practices. For example, when it was time to begin the ploughing season in Solmonath, or February, if that field were unfruitful, this was a religious matter, and complex rituals and incantations, or geldas, such as the Acabot, a field remedy that could be used to restore the land's fertility. On the reckoning of time, Bede wrote that at Plotmonath, or November, they offered slaughtered livestock to their gods. This is confirmed only a century later in the Old English martyrology, as their heathen ancestors would blot or offer sacrifices to cattle. Under the advice of Pope Gregory I to Abbot Mellitus of London, to assist the conversion of the English to Christianity, these sacrifices were to be rededicated to the Christian God. And so Blossmonath became associated with the celebration Martinmas after Saint Martin of Tours in France, or Frankland. So heathen were these practices in Frankland, they were banned in the Diocese Council of Auxerre in 578. These offerings were also secularised, as seen in the laws of King Einar of Wessex, where the dedication of cattle, feoch, or fee, was replaced by the dedication of fee, money, and church tithes of Martinmas took its place. Even by the 15th century, a poem called The Labours of the Months described the farm work of each month and showed that these practices at Martinmas still continued. For each line of this poem was a month of the year. Beith is fair each one with me handis, and with me spader each delta me landis. Here is sette, me finger to springe, and here is here the fowlers singe. Ich am as licht as birde in bouwe, and ich weder me corne well in naue. And with me siefe, me meder I maue, and here ich share me corn for lowe. With me flail I erde me brede, and here I sour me huete står rede. At Martins masse I kille me swine, and at Christus masse I drinke red wine. So here we can see that Martinmas is associated with the killing of swine, but not this lovely little guy here. This continued, however, into the Reformation and English civil wars, at which point the English Parliament, now Protestant, purged Christianity of all its holy day celebrations. This included Christmas and Easter. Thus the heathen sacrifices of Blossmonath, while no longer dedicated to the English gods, lived on for centuries more in the farmers' cattle slaughter to prepare for the cold nights of the winter ahead.
That's fascinating again, isn't it? I love hearing him speak Old English.
It's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I think he translates Harry Potter and stuff into Old English for fun in his spare time.
Well. Yeah, nice. So we did get some questions from the social media call-outs, and they're really interesting ones. And I thought, I never would have thought of that. So the first one we have is from Stuart.
Right.
And he says, "Hey Sam, really enjoying the podcasts. I have a question. We've had to water our allotment a lot recently and use water from our local burn, which we pump through the pipes to fill barrels. It got me thinking about the past, so I'd love to know what methods the Anglo-Saxons used for irrigation in dry spells and what evidence we might see in the archaeological records. Did they bring new methods or still use some of the old Roman infrastructure? Many thanks."
That's a very good question. So there isn't a single answer, but yeah, I mean, the climate back then was slightly colder and wetter than it is now, but they would have had dry spells, little droughts. We know that they used wells a lot, and they would quite happily dig through 50 metres of rock to hollow a well out if they needed to. But they also used systems of trenches and furrows to collect water, and troughs as well. So we actually got one in the museum, a stone trough that was used to gather water. But they were very inventive. They could even sort of dam rivers and flood surrounding fields to create sort of meadows with that long meadow grass that they wanted. So there were tools that they used once they started arable farming on scale. Streams could be diverted. But yeah, I mean, by and large, having that system of trenches and furrows to gather water and direct it where they wanted it to go, usually ensuring that they could water their fields when they needed to. Yeah. And you're never too far from a well in Anglo-Saxon England.
I suppose that would make the location of the farm particularly important.
Yeah, so I mean, they didn't just set up their farms and estates anywhere. They would plan very carefully where they're going to establish a settlement, just to have good natural drainage. Because the other side of it is you don't want to be flooded all the time either. So you're looking for somewhere with good natural drainage, with water access to moorland as well for putting your livestock out to pasture. So a lot of thought would have gone into where exactly their farms were to begin with.
Yeah. So they're ruled by the landscape as well as the seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I remember seeing when we had the floods last year, there was a place called Fish Lake that was flooded. And well, the name itself suggests it's not a good place to build a town.
That's really interesting. So the next question is from somebody called Rage Racing.
Hey,
Okay.
Rage Racing.
Hi, so I have a question or two on farming. Would each family farm for themselves, or would the community farm as a whole? Also, would there be specialised farming, like a pig farmer, or would everyone just farm everything? Love the podcast. Thanks, Drew.
Oh,
So Drew.
very nice. Thank you, Drew. Yeah, I guess certainly in the early and mid Anglo-Saxon periods, you had a lot of subsistence farming. So people were just farming for themselves. If you're farming crops, you're going to still need animals to do that because it's not possible to sow your seeds and fertilize them without animal manure. And ploughing fields by hand is a lot harder than just getting oxen to do it. So people, by and large, were self-sufficient. They like we said earlier, they grew what they ate, and they ate everything they grew. Later on, when you see big estates developing, they might have a specific purpose for brewing, for example. So you might have specific crops being grown. And then you may have other sites where they focus exclusively on rearing animals for slaughter, perhaps for export. So
I know up at Lindisfarne in Bamborough, there was a thing about the cattle, wasn't there? So the monks were vegetarian, or at least pescatarian.
yeah,
But they needed a lot of skins for making their books, for making the vellum. But I think when they did all of their archaeological investigations, they discovered that there was a high red meat kind of
intake.
content, in the people of Bamborough, just across the water to the...
Which is a
where the
royal
monks lived.
site, So if you're wealthy enough, you're going to be eating a lot more meat than a poor person. But then as now, the more money you have, the better you eat.
They did find that they were suffering from sort of gout and all sorts of health problems. through
Yeah,
that as well.
worms. And I think they'd have bad sinusitis from smoke in poorly ventilated rooms, which is not something we have to struggle with too often, but it is getting a bit smoky.
It is at the moment,
Right,
isn't it? Somebody put some wet wood on.
But yeah, I mean, I think Ipswich is a site that's been excavated very thoroughly, and there is evidence there of almost industrial farming with particular crops being grown sort of with intent. So they're trying to generate a surplus. It's not just subsistence farming. They're either growing crops for baking or brewing on a big scale to then export and possibly sell.
Yeah. That's all good stuff, isn't it? It leads down many rabbit holes.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a big subject because you're covering such a broad period of time, and the landscape's different in England. Like further south, you've got better farmland. So the basic unit of measurement is a hide of land, and that's the amount of land you need to support a family. But where we are, I mean, we live on the northeast coastal plain, so it's quite good for farming here. But in other upland areas, up in the Pennines and Cheviots, a hide of land is probably bigger than in a low-lying coastal area like this because the soil quality is not as good. So there are a lot of different angles to look at it from, and then there's so much research still being done because it's hard to tell from the archaeological record sometimes because the sites that were being farmed in a lot of cases are continuing to be farmed. So sort of modern ploughing and agriculture is, it
digs a bit deeper, doesn't it?
Digs a bit deeper, and it destroys the evidence what's
You can
happened in the
also
past.
unearth some stuff as well,
Yeah.
unexpectedly finding things in a field.
Absolutely. I remember
Yeah.
watching a document on the Staffordshire Hoard, and the farmer whose land it was on was just bemused that it had never turned up previously in all those hundreds of years of it being farmed. And he spared a thought for all those poor farmhands who were sick of their lives, not realising there's a huge mound of treasure just inches below their feet. So yeah, I mean, it can yield interesting discoveries, but there's nothing wrong, of course, with continuing to farm the land and disturb it, because it's how we get our food. It's essential.
Yeah.
I love how they describe how big an area is.
Yeah.
Height of land. So
It's
when
useful.
they describe forests, it was like a 2-pig forest, for example. I know we've got the size of a 2-pig forest here. It's lovely.
A two-pig
I love
forest. I
Two-pig
like that.
forest.
How
We
many
should
pigs have we
rename
got?
it. We've got 5.
5 pigs in a 2-pig forest.
Yeah.
And I guess historically they would have just been let loose to go in the woods to
They
gather
would forage and
acorns and
Yeah.
feed themselves.
But we bring food from outside to feed them, don't we? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can fit more pigs here.
Yeah.
Just assuming. Hey, well, that's been really fascinating. I've really enjoyed this episode.
It's lovely.
Yeah, thank
Very
you.
chilled this time.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's been a
yes.
pleasure. And thank you, Richard, for filming. And thank you to all of the watchers and listeners.
Yeah.
I hope you found it as entertaining as I have.
And if you have any ideas for what you'd like us to cover in future episodes, let us know in the comments. If you want to subscribe, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. But yes, have a good time wherever you are in the world, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Yeah. And share it with your friends.
Yeah, share it with your
Yeah.
friends. Give us a share.
Yeah. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.